Going live. Hopefully the hotkey worked. We're going to find out in a second. Looks like it did. All right. We are officially live. I don't know why I keep flickering there. I think it's working. Hello, everyone. My name is Ross Shabilsky. I am the founder of D20 Studios, and this is episode 2 of Develop with Ross. And today we're going to be working on our latest upcoming game called Summoner's Fate. It is a top-down adventure deck builder, a combination of tactical turn-based combat with strategic card play, and of course deck building. And today we are going to be implementing some new cards for our upcoming pre-release. This game will be available for public early access by the end of this month is my target goal. So you'll have a chance to play it, join us in the creative process developing it. We are a community-driven developer, meaning that I take player feedback incredibly seriously. I don't just look at suggestions. I converse with our players, talk with them directly. Last week on the stream, we actually implemented 2 player-suggested card ideas and had a lot of fun doing so. And I hope to have a long relationship with you, developing this game, playing the game, having fun. So let's get to it. I'm going to take a quick glance to see who we got in the channel here. Hello, Imza Corella. It's good to have you on the stream with us. And hello to all those here just watching. All right, so what we've got here is my tool that I've created to build this game called the Definitions Editor. And this tool allows me to create all of the game's content, including maps, effects, abilities, cards, triggers, scenarios, particles, I mean, pretty much everything. So it's been kind of a tandem developing the game as well as developing this engine to make the game with, because content development is very important and I need to have tools to be able to do that. All right, so we're going to get started. I have an agenda for today. I'm going to pull that up. And I posted this on the forums here. So if you guys want to contribute or look at this on your own, you can go to the URL here at the top. It's just in our summonersfate.com forums. You can get to this from the events topic, and then it's episode 2. And I kind of leave that up there. See, Summoner's Fate events. There you go. And that's how you can get to this page. But last time we developed 2 cards. I'd like to try and get a few more done this time. So I put together an agenda of some card ideas here that I thought would be fun to build during the stream. So here they are. I think today we're going to start with this Gate of Fate because this is probably the one I'm the most excited about. There has been some concerns in gameplay with difficulty getting out larger creatures like the dragons because the mana cost is so high, and they are also very easy to dispense with when using spells like Touch of Death or mind controlling them. So this is a spell that's intended to give you the ability to get these creatures out in kind of a more direct and interesting way. Basically, the idea is you create this portal, and your opponent has a heads up on it. It's going to create a 0/5 portal that they can, try to stop from summoning the creature. But at the start of your next turn, it's going to open the portal and summon the next creature in your deck. So it's a little bit of random. It's kind of a pseudo-random because it's based on how the deck has been shuffled. It's not going to actually draw or configure any kind of random card. It's just going to pick the card that's already been randomized for the next draw within your deck, and then summon it and place it on the board. Okay, so we're going to start with that today. And I'm going to go ahead and show off a few things. I did a little bit of pre-work on this one yesterday just to get us in a place that'd be good to get this implemented in the game. Okay, and if you guys have any questions or want me to slow down or anything during the stream, have trouble hearing me, or want to just look at something a little closer, just feel free to shout out in the channel. I'll be glancing over here and there to make sure that I'm not missing anyone's comments. Okay, great. All right, so in order to get this ability working, yesterday I had to create a couple things. We're going to show those off. This is the specific effect I had to create. There's 2 things, actually. There was a new type of action effect as well as a new type of targeting method that were needed to create this thing. And so what this effect does, and action effects are essentially all the micro-executed things that a spell or grander action can do. They're the actual effects of a card action. And in this case, I needed to have something kind of unique. Existing effects might be things like modify an attribute, create a creature, and so forth. And this effect was designed to play the next card. All right, and so it's going to assume that the target of the event is a card, and then it's going to try to draw it, assign to the ability user. It's not going to add it to your hand because it's going to play it immediately. It's going to make the cost 0 so that you're not doubly paying up the mana cost. Determine the card targets, and that's using some of our targeting algorithms and stuff like that. Since you're not going to be able to manually pick the target, it's got to have some intelligence here I've added to have it auto-select target. And in this case, if it doesn't already have an auto-designated target, it's going to go ahead and use my target random closest. This is not actually a random targeting. It's really more of a method for auto-selecting a target. Okay, and then it's going to play the card. All right, and so the other thing I had to do to get this ready in advance was create the targeting method. And that targeting method was called play next card. Or no, wait, it's target next card. Let's try that. Target next card. Okay, I had to create a new targeting method to target cards in the deck. And so this method essentially goes through, and for the total number of targets that I want to count down, I'm going to add potential target, which is the top card in my deck. And so that's what this algorithm here is doing. And so those were added to my definitions editor yesterday, so we'd have the tools necessary to create this card today. Okay, so I'm going to go back here, and actually we're going to go ahead and get a little test set up to test this card with. I use the dex definitions here to create decks within the editor I can use for test purposes. In this case, we're going to use the gate. And I had some junk in here I'm going to clean up. We're going to get rid of this air elemental. And we've got, let's make a few of these guys. We need to have some creatures in this deck. And I probably only need to have one of these. Okay. All right, so I put the Gate of Fate card in there. I've got some Arthropod Walkers and some Unsummons. I don't think I need the Unsummons here. We can get rid of those for this test purpose. Okay, I think I was working on that yesterday. All right, and we're going to go back to our map here. And so from within the definitions there, I can now go ahead and test out this card. Okay, I'm going to change my deck to the Test Gate deck. And we're going to start game. Okay, so here's my gate card. And I probably should have talked through how it's configured right now, but we're going to play this card. And I had 3 of these in my deck, so you saw what happened there is it cast that card, then played this card. And I'm going to explain in a second why it's set up that way. This is a test to confirm that those targeting methods actually were functional. And when I develop, I like to do things in sort of micro steps and test those micro steps along the way so that I can verify in the grand scheme of putting the ability together that all the subcomponents are working. It helps make the debugging process a lot easier in isolating where potential problems could be occurring. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back to the actual card, and I'll show you how it's set up right now, and then we're going to talk about what needs to happen in order to get it working the way we want. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and find the Gate of Fate. Geez, I really need to get a search in this thing. It's getting unruly. All right, so here's the card editor. This is what actually lets me edit the spells. Okay, the description here lets me type in anything I want. I can demonstrate here. See, I just type in stuff. So that is a way to preview text on the card. And what it's supposed to do is summon a portal. And right now what it's doing is it just has an action effect of play the next card. And the primary target is just the caster, and then the secondary target is the next card in target deck. The reason it's doing this is because it needs to know which target deck, and it's my target deck because I'm the self, so this is the secondary target of that. And then it's just looking for the next card in the deck that meets this condition. In this case, I want a card whose action type is to create a unit. And that's how this card is able to currently function. So what we're actually going to need to do is set this up a little differently. We need to create a new portal on the board that's going to then take on the job of summoning the next card in our deck so it actually functions as the card describes. Crab Rave, yes. It's got the cool kind of crab looking demon there, the Arthropod guy. Okay. So to get that working, we're going to have to do a few things. We're going to need to create an asset that this can be placed on the board. So we're going to start with that first. And in this case, we want the asset to be something that can actually be attacked by the opponent. It's placed on the board. It's not going to be a unit that you can move and control. So the designation we have for that is called a placeable. And so to get access to that, I'm going to go into my, get back to that, apps, assets, and we're going to go into our world assets file. We're going to actually have to create a new asset for this guy. So I'm going to boot this up. Did it open? Come on, buddy. There we go. Opening? Maybe it's taking a while. It's a large file. Give that a second to load up. Ah! Okay, and then we're also going to need something to represent it. So I'm going to go to the icons file as well. Okay, give this a second to boot up. There's a lot of assets in these things, so hopefully my memory doesn't crash out at me while I'm doing this. Okay, icons, come on. There we go. All right, I need to find that Gate of Fate card. There it is. That's what I need. Because this is going to be what we're going to actually use to represent it for now, since I don't necessarily have an official asset. Okay. So what we got here, the world assets file contains all of the world assets, things like our placeable terrain and our tiles. Some interesting things to note here. You can see the tiles, I white boxed them all. This was done intentionally so that I could control the color schemes of those textures dynamically on the fly, allowing us to make a much greater variety of map textures at minimal cost to the game's file size and to your device memory, which is really nice. So then you can see all of our other objects at the top here. These are our placeables. And so what we're going to do is go into these guys, and we're going to create a new placeable object. And these are all designed to be anchor pointed to a very particular tile location. So rather than take guesses, I'm going to go ahead and just copy an existing placeable here so that we know it's going to work as intended. And sure, we're just going to grab the armor rack and copy that for now. Duplicate. And we're going to call this Gate of Fate. Ooh, caps is on. Gate of Fate. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and drag this onto the board. Let me just check my notifications here, make sure. Okay, that's not anything I need to worry about. Okay, so this is the new instance called Gate of Fate. We're going to make sure we name it here so that we can detect it in the editor. Okay, and then I'm going to go into this guy, and I'm going to turn on the guide layer. And I think the guide layer is currently disabled. So I need to turn that on. Let's go into my guides. How do I do this again? It has been a long time since I've worked in here. But there should be a thing called guides. There it is. That's what I was looking for. I have these guides on here so I can help myself understand its space relative to the tile. So there's just a gray box there you can see. I got to make sure I turn these off when we're done so they don't show up. Okay, and we're going to go into the Gate of Fate here. And I'm going to go ahead and zoom in here a little bit. Okay, so I don't want this guy, and I don't want that on there. We just need to have the asset itself. So we're going to go in here. Now I'm going to control paste in the Gate of Fate icon. So we've got something to represent that. Now, because that's a little too small. And that's why we have the guide here so we can identify how big this needs to be. Maybe 200% would be good. A little bigger, 300. That's pretty good. Maybe 350. I want this to be large enough that you know there's something happening here. Okay, and really this is just the goal here is just to create a marker of this thing, and we'll center it so that it's kind of, oops, better place there. Oops, I don't want, there we go. Okay, so that's pretty good. And now we've got something to represent the Gate of Fate there. All right, I'm going to move this over, and I like to keep things neat by just keeping that locked down inside the file. This is more just an aesthetic thing than anything. 2400, so 2600 by 1200, just to keep our organization nice and neat. Okay, and then we got to go ahead and turn that guide off so we don't have that thing showing up inside the game. And just go back to this, turn that as a guide layer. Do this a couple times to make it turn off. And that should hide the guy. Okay, so now we've got a Gate of Fate asset that will appear on the tiles for us. And what I'm going to do with this is save this. Okay, give that a second to do its thing. I'm going to close down this icons. We don't need that. And then what I'm going to do is publish this guy. Okay. All right, and that should have the Gate of Fate asset ready to go. Now, one thing that we're going to need to do is actually drop that asset into the application folder so that the application can read that new asset in there. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to go ahead and close down the definition editor. And we don't have to recompile for this per se. What we need to do is just copy that asset. In this case, that's the world asset. I'm going to copy that like so. And then I have my definition editor app here, and we're going to go into this thing. Contents, resources, and there's the world asset. I'm going to go paste. Paste item. This is going to replace the world. Yes. Okay. And now that I've done that, we should be good to go. Minimize this guy. Refire up the launcher. And the definitions editor is designed to dynamically read assets I provided within that asset file. So it's an editor tool that can also edit itself. And what we're going to do is we need to create that asset so it's something that we can access via cards or abilities. And so what we're going to do is go to Placeables, and we're going to create it. So this is where I actually define the objects we create. And we're going to make a new object called Gate of Fate. Okay, Gate of Fate. And then I'm going to go look for the asset. And since we created it in the Placeables table, you're going to see it appear in here as placeables.gateoffate. And there it is, Gate of Fate. Okay, so that's created. And it's only going to have one face. We want it basically, since we don't have an asset that's like perspective based, it doesn't need to rotate. It's going to always just auto rotate to look like this icon on the board whenever it's placed. Okay, and we can also show things like what its card looks like here. And we can probably need to adjust that a little bit so it's not so, I don't know, let's go 0.8. And then we can adjust this up a bit, -20. Yeah, probably a little smaller even, maybe, huh? Maybe like there, point, and then -30. Maybe a little smaller. That's probably pretty good. And what kind of card is this going to be? I guess it would be a chaos card, right? That looks pretty much like the icon there. Okay, and we can type in description for now that'll just say summons the next card in player's deck at the start of their next turn. Okay, and that's what Gate of Fate is going to do. Okay, so we got that all created, and we're going to save this. And now we're going to go ahead and change that spell to summon the Gate of Fate. So I'm going to go into my spells. We're going to go back to Gate of Fate. Okay, and where previously it was going to play the next card, we're going to get rid of that effect, and we're going to change this effect to be create a unit, or I guess create placeable is the proper term. Create placeable. And the new subtype will appear in here. Again, this editor edits itself, so there is the now newly created Gate of Fate we can create. I'm going to hit save. Okay, and then we need to change these targetings a bit because these targetings are no longer valid targeting. So we're going to remove this guy, and we're going to remove that. We don't need those secondary targeting. And this needs to target a space. Now, typically with summons, we restrict that to placing on a surrounding tile. And I hadn't thought about where the user may desire to place this portal, but that probably sounds like it would be a good starting point for us to place on a surrounding tile. And if anyone's got thoughts on different ways to have this thing placed, just shout out in the channel. But assuming not, I'm going to go ahead and just make this be targeting method will be a surrounding, and we don't want it to be unit. We want that to be a space, and it should be an empty space. We don't want something that's already occupied. Okay, and I think that's all we should need for that. Okay, create placeable gate on target. Target is going to be a surrounding space, and we're going to hit save to that and go back to the maps, and we're going to test this card. Grassy Path. Okay, test, start game. Okay, and now we should be able to go ahead and place the Gate of Fate on the board. Hey, there it is. Oh, I just realized we forgot to give it make it a 0-5. So, and it should be targetable. Let's just verify it is. They can destroy it. Okay, cool. And then the other thing I want to test is to make sure that it is in fact adapting for orientation, and it does. So the way I program these placeables to work is when there is not multiple facings, they counter rotate so that the perspective always matches. That's why the trees always look like they're pointing the right direction when you change map orientation. It's kind of fun to do that because you can kind of see from different perspectives how the map might look to people. When you play the game, actually, it's neat because it'll always orient your characters to face in the same direction, so that you're always either, if you're playing portrait, you're always attacking from the bottom up, so to make it easier to control the characters with your thumb. Or if you're playing on desktop, typically you're always going to be going from left to right. Although, of course, you can change that if you're left-handed to play the opposite. But this helps keep it consistent so that you're always moving from the same direction. And those trees and stuff will all auto-orient it. And so you can see a cool effect of that is when I put them over here and then put portrait on, now you can actually see the tree is occluding them. Okay, so we've got a gate, a portal that summons. The portal can be destroyed. Yeah, I noticed another issue here. It doesn't have any kind of sound effect. There's no hit sound effects on it. Yeah, okay. And it does appear attackable by the enemy, but not attackable by me, which we would want. We wouldn't want to destroy our own portal. Okay. So a couple things we need to fix. We got to give this portal a 0-5, so it's got some health to it. And then we've got to give it the abilities it's going to need. All right, so let's go ahead and start with the ability programming first, since that would we're going to have to go back on that thing anyway. And to do that, we're going to go to our triggered abilities, and we're going to create a new triggered ability. And this triggered ability will be called, I guess, summon next unit. You know what? Let's just call it Gate of Fate, because this is probably the only thing that's going to actually use this particular trigger. And the trigger type of this is going to be a trigger event. That trigger event is going to be on start turn. Okay, where's that start turn? Start turn. And the trigger method execution is going to be the action default. And I'll talk about what that's going to do. So one important thing to note, whenever you create a triggered ability in this game, the trigger is going to apply to any time a turn starts. It's going to do this. So we need to give it some specific conditions so it's not going to be just firing this ability on all start turn events. And the main thing we need for that is to go to triggered ability, and we want trigger subject. Okay, and we want the activator is the player whose turn it is. Okay, so event activator. Okay, so the player whose turn it is we want to make sure that their property, I guess, player ID, is equal to the ability user trigger subject. This is my cheat sheet here. I kind of explained this last time, but I have a hard time remembering how I map things. All the trigger events are interfaces that have the same properties of the activator, a target, subtypes, and a value, but each event assigns different things to those. And so I've got this cheat sheet here to help remind me of what these different things are relative to how I'm constructing the abilities. So in this case, activator is the player whose turn it is, and we need to make sure that this only activates on the same player's turn as the person using the ability's turn. So it's their player, not just the opponent's turn. Okay, and then trigger subject for that will be event activator, trigger subject. We wanted ability user was the one we want here. Ability user, and we need to make sure that the property is that they are the same player. Player ID. Okay. Event activator.player ID is equal to ability user.player ID. Okay. And so that should make it so it only triggers on the start of your player's turn. Okay. All right, and then effects. So we already know the effect we want to do is we want to play the next card, and that was that one we had created before. So we're basically going to recreate that effect here and do the effect type is play next card. Where's that card? Play next card. I guess it technically should be called play card because the next is going to be determined by the targeting here on target. Okay. And the primary targeting method in this case is going to be, first it's going to be self, because remember we need to have a reference point to the thing that's using the ability. And then the secondary target in this case is going to be the target in the self stack, the target in that object stack. So let's see if I can find that again. It was target next card, I believe is what I called it. Next card in target deck. Okay. And this is going to be targeting a card. And we want to make sure that the card is the next unit card. Otherwise, the portal will open up and summon fireballs out of it, and we don't want that. Maybe for another card. But for this case, we want it to summon the next unit card. Okay, so we need to go target subject, target, and we want to have its property, in this case the card action type, is equal to, and we want to find card action type unit. Okay, so let's just check it again. On the start of the turn, when the start turn event fires, if the player ID is equal to the ability player ID, so it's my player that's starting the turn, I'm going to target the action default, which means that we're going to define targeting based on the targeting here. I'm going to target myself, and by targeting myself, my secondary target is the next card in my own deck. And I'm going to target a card, and that card will be action type unit, and the effect is going to be to play the next card. Okay? And so that should give us everything we need to do to fire that ability. One thing we do want to make sure we tick here is that it is cast. And we're probably going to want to put some sound effects and stuff like that on here, so we'll come back to that. But I think that's enough here to kind of get that working to start that off. Okay, and then we're going to also put the triggered ability in here as well, because this is technically where that card description should go. But for now, let's just save that. We're going to go back to the placeables, and I'm going to go to the Gate of Fate. G. Okay. And I'm going to give it the new triggered ability of Gate of Fate, so that it actually has the ability. Add. Okay. And then we're also going to, while we're in here, we're going to give this thing some attributes. And the attribute it needs to have that's important is life. And it should have 5 life. Add that property. And there we go. So now it's got a 5 life. Okay, and then I mentioned the descriptions of the ability should be pulled from the ability itself, not the card here. So summons the next card in player's deck at the start of the next turn. We're going to cut this out, save this, and then I'm going to go back to that triggered ability so that the text for that ability is linked to the ability, not the card. And I'm just going to put that description in here. And this will then inherit to the card. And the reason I do that is if I give the card additional abilities, I don't want to have to worry about writing a custom description because that can be very unwieldy for us. And you see here that it inherited those things onto the card. Okay, so this card should be ready to work, aside from needing some sound effects. In fact, why don't we go ahead and get those sound effects in there as well. And Gate of Fate. Okay. Okay. All right, I'm just going to make a new notepad here so I can copy some of this stuff out of here. Okay, so I want the... Okay, these are just the sound effects. I'm going to just copy them over so it has similar effects when it opens the portal for summoning this dude. Okay, and then we're going to go put these sound effects back into the other triggered ability. Okay. Gate of Fate. And I'm going to go ahead and paste these in there. All right, so those two first ones are the sound effects, and then this last one is just the VFX. We've got a really simple VFX animation that kind of makes a little bit of a purpley looking swirl thing to kind of just give you some feedback that something's happening. And save. All right, go back to maps. Go to our grassy path, is the level we're testing on today, and test, start game. Okay, moment of truth here. Oh, I didn't draw had a pretty low chance there, but I didn't draw the card. Okay, now we got the card. All right, so let's go ahead and we want to make sure we summon the portal far enough away that it's not going to be destroyed. All right, we'll put it there. Okay, now it is in fact a 5 unit there, so takes 5 damage. Okay, and we're going to end our turn. And our next turn, it should summon Oh, it's not going to summon it because we don't have enough creatures in our deck. It's going to do nothing. Let's see what happens here. Or the enemy will also kill our gate. Well, that was a poor test. All right, we need to go ahead and make some adjustments here so that we can effectively test this. Let's go back to our decks. We need some additional creatures in there. Where was our gate test? All right, because if we draw enough cards, we're not going to have enough. So we just probably make that 4 would be enough for the purpose of the test. And go back to maps. Grassy path. And I'm going to go ahead and test this again and see how this rolls out. Okay. Oh, wait. I also forgot to get rid of these Sinus. Let's just put her behind the wall so she can't zap us. Okay. And save. And turn. Yes. Uh-oh. We have a bug. That's no fun. Send action command, use action, play next card effect. Interesting. So it looks like the ability triggered probably during the AI's turn. I'm gonna verify that down here. Let's go see if we can find the AI's turn. End turn, resolve, start turn. Yeah, start AI turn. So the AI was running a simulation. It played through up to the start of our next turn when it would have activated this card, and it looks like it's throwing a major, I don't know what to do here, send action command. So there's some kind of problem here happening, and in order to investigate this, we're gonna have to debug to find out exactly where I programmed wrong here. So let's close this down. Let's close down world. This thing's done, and we're gonna compile this in debug mode and track this down. Okay. Excellent. These things happen. It's okay. We're going to figure it out. It's nice, though, to have the uncaught error handler happening so that I can verify that there is something going on that's wrong and have a way to track it down, because without that, the game would have just silently failed, and you would have saw the game probably freeze at that point, or lock up, or hang, or just do nothing. And it would have been kind of like, something may have happened here, but you don't get a clear, it's a bug in your face without that catcher that catches our bugs. All right. I'm going to go now and we're going to test this game again. Let's just make our life easier and get rid of the Sinus. We don't need to have her in our way on the enemy team. And you know what? Let's get rid of the AI's cards too. We don't need to have them having any starter decks. They can have no spells. Just to help make our test a little easier to set up. Okay, so they just have 2 units. And of course, we did not draw the Gate of Fate again, so we're going to go ahead and start over and do it again. And that time we did, and we're going to summon the Gate of Fate. Okay. I'm going to end turn, and we should get that bug right away. There it is. Boom. Okay, so it looks like secondary targets. Interesting. Is that what's causing the issue here? Designated something is null. That's always what these errors are. It's always something null. Can access the property of null object reference. I'm going to assume it's designated secondary targets. Let's see if that is correct. That seems odd that would be null. It is indeed. That is the problem. So it's trying to pass in some secondary targets here, and it's null. All right, we need to figure out why that's the case. Interesting. I'm going to guess it has something to do back here in the effect itself. Okay. Set designated targets, secondary targets. Let's see what secondary targets looks like here. Ah, it's null here, and that's interesting. Aha, okay. And this is a very stupid mistake on my part, but one thing I had to put in this code here was a special case for the Gate of Fate. I guess I didn't explain this when I was talking about the code I did yesterday to kind of preset this ability up. But you can see here where I determine the card targets. I have a general case here that's designed to factor in any kind of spell. But in the case of the Gate of Fate, I thought rather than having it summon on the closest space next to the gate, it would make more sense to just summon it on top of the gate, thereby replacing the gate with the summoned creature that comes out of it. And so I made a special case here if the ability user is not null, if it's a placeable, and if the action is a unit, then instead of targeting whatever the normal targeting would be, target the space it's on. The problem with that is I had the secondary target acquisition within the else statement. And so in this case, the secondary target's not even set, and therefore it's causing the bug. So this is a really easy fix. All we're going to need to do is take and move this secondary target assignment out of the else statement, like so. Delete that line. And we're going to put this here, like so. And then we're going to save this file. Save. Okay, and we're going to close this down. And I don't even need to debug it again. I'm absolutely certain that is the bug. We're going to go ahead and just republish this application so we can run it in non-debugger mode. And that should correct the error. And now we should see it summoning crab people. All right, insectoid crab things. I don't know. The arthropod walker was kind of this weird thing. It's like a half crab, but it's an insectoid because why not? Okay. Good to go. Fired up. Maps. Grassy path. And once again, we start the game. And hopefully we get the Gate of Fate in our hand to start off with. Okay, and there it is. This time, I expect to see that thing open a portal and summon my creature. Alright, we didn't get the bug. That's a good sign. Started my turn. Oh, it's a... Oh! That was not so exciting. I had thought that would do it. It looks like it tried to summon it, but it didn't do anything. And that's a real shame, isn't it? Let's take a look at our debug menu and see what exactly happened here. So it looks like it tried to use it. It resolved, and it cast summon unit. Summon unit resolved, and it fizzled because there are no legal targets. I see. I guess my summoning rule defaults. I thought it defaulted to replacing the unit on board if you try to summon on an existing space, but I guess it did not. So that's okay. That's an easy fix. Basically, what we need to do is add to the trigger when we open the portal. We need to destroy the portal so that the space is available and occupied for the creature to come out. And I think that'll fix it. So let's just go back to the triggered ability. And I'm trying to think how that's going to work. Oh, man. Let's see if this works. Okay. Okay. Let's see if this is enough to do it. We're going to try and apply attribute. Apply. Set attribute. We're going to try and do it this way. I'm going to tell it to remove this thing from play. Remove from play. Set that to 1. And we don't want that on target. We want this on the ability user. Okay, so remove the portal from play, then summon the creature. I have no idea if that's going to work because there's a whole operation of orders, and I think that'll work, but it's always a mystery because there's so much processes with the code and the stack and the order of things that I can never be too sure, but let's just see if that does it. Open our portal. Okay, we're going to get a creature this time. Come on. Oh. Okay, well the portal closed itself, but it didn't summon anything. That's not so fun. It still says there are no legal targets. All right, so there is in fact something we're going to have to change with the code here to make that okay for it to do its job. Huh. I'm a bit perplexed by that, to be honest, because I thought that this would work. My guess is that the issue is coming into play because of a target check that it's doing, where it is trying to do a secondary validation check in that space and saying, no, I can't do it because there's a problem here with that target. It's interesting. Interesting. Okay, let's see. Target space. I bet you I have an idea what it is. So I kind of did a little bit of a cheat thing here, which was that when I set the primary targets here to the target space, I'm not taking into account the fact that the target itself is not legally able to be of a I'm going to try to explain this. The target of the actual action ability is the I'm trying to think what actually is this. No, target is space. I'm not quite sure why this is happening. Let me think about this a little more. So we're forcing the target to be a space. I'm guessing that somewhere in the action verification, are there any plans for the bugs yet? Oh, sorry. I'm looking at the chat now. Mantis, ant, giant, yellow. Yes, there are plans for the bugs. Let's hold off on the bug discussion, though, for now until we finish this ability. But absolutely, I want to talk about the insectoids. Okay. So looking at this guy here, we're forcing the primary target to be set to target space. I'm guessing that somewhere in my process of validating the action, it's telling me that that target is illegal because that space is in fact occupied. So we're going to have to track down where that's happening, that's causing the action to fizzle, because we don't want that to happen obviously here. We want it to force that target on itself. Okay, so one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check another effect here, which is the create unit effect. This is what the actual summon spell does. And I had been certain that, yes, okay, if target is a summoned, and if there's an existing piece on the space to be summoned, it should be removing that unit from play so that it can place the summon. So it's something else with the targeting that's happening here that's causing this issue to occur. And I almost wonder if what we can do is, I'm going to take a look at something else here. I'm going to go back and look at one of my transformation spells, because they have a similar thing they're doing where they're summoning a new unit on top of another unit. So the one I'm going to look at is Animal Growth. This looks pretty confusing, huh? All right, but the way that transformations of the game currently work is that what actually happens is when something is transformed, it just summons another unit on top of the other one. So it actually replaces it. It's not actually transforming anything. It's just kind of an illusion, at least for right now. We may change that in the future. Okay, so create unit on primary target loc. So that looks like maybe how it's avoiding the targeting method here, because it's not having to worry about occupied or empty. I see. Okay. So what we need to do is basically the summon spell action. I'm going to go find that. I think I've got this figured out. Is defined by a hard-coded ability inside of here, right? So when we have a unit card and I create a summon spell, it just basically attaches this default action to summon it. And the rules for summoning are to create a unit on target. You're going to see that the space type is empty. And what's happening is when the action goes to cast, the reason it's fizzling is because the action is assuming that the space has to be empty. And because the Gate of Fate is still present at the time the effects are executed, it's saying that it can't cast because that space is occupied. So we're going to need to make a manual change to change this target type, and I think that will fix it. And we can do that right here in our little custom exception special case. This is our special case for counter the Gate of Fate spell. Okay, so what we need to do here is change its targeting of that spell. And I'm going to do that using this guy here. Okay. So what we need to do is change the def targeting of this ability. Actually, I'm trying to think how we're going to actually do that. If I modify this card here and then the action sequence is undone, we don't want to actually permanently alter that spell from doing its thing, so that's a concern as well. I need a way to change the targeting of that spell to allow for the exception without it permanently affecting the ability somehow. The other way we could do it potentially is to overrule the targeting check. Yeah, this is kind of a mess I created for myself, because I don't want to permanently alter the card. That would certainly fix it. Let's think. All right, I think that's what we're gonna do for now. I'm gonna come back to that, but I think the way I'm gonna fix it is we are gonna alter the targeting method to allow the exception, but then I'll have to come back later and clean it up to make sure that if the effect is undone, it reassigns it back to the original targeting so that it does not um, run into an issue. Or we can add a flag that just says something like, ignore targeting or ignore space constraints, but let's just try changing this for now. Okay, so we've got the action. I'm going to go ahead and change this as follows. Selected card dot action dot primary targeting. Yep, primary targeting equals. Okay. And I need to define this guy here. Let's just put this up at the top. Oh, interesting. This is not assignable, as it should not be. All right, so we're going to do some hacks here just for the purpose of getting this to work. I'm going to create an accessor for set. Sometimes you have to hack your code in a way that's undesirable just to get past the blocker, and then you can come back and clean it up. But let's see, this should be a of def targeting type. Okay, and we needed to make it so that primary targeting equals val. Okay, so we've now allowed it to self-assign that. That should get rid of that error. It did. Okay, and we want everything about this the same except for the fact that we want the primary targeting changes to be the same. Primary targeting dot random type. Okay, I want to clone the existing method, except I want to change the primary target type to be type target. Give me that thing. Type target should be space occupied or empty. And that should allow this card to work now. So we are actually going to be modifying this action. And I'll explain as well why it's important. I'm going to go back and have to clean this up later. We're not going to worry about that in this stream. I don't want to focus too much on this card, but this should get us so the card works. So what we did was I'm actually modifying the actions targeting with the clone of that targeting. Everything will be the same about how the targeting algorithm works, except for the fact that we're going to alter that targeting type to be for space occupied or empty. And that will get us past the validation check that's happening down here that's causing it to fizzle. The official term for when something doesn't work because it's illegal. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and just republish this again. I'm going to take a moment to review our chat channel here while we're waiting to see if anyone has any other questions about the process of what's going on. Looks like we're good to go there. And we should be ready to test this new ability. I'm going to close this old instance down. Okay. Okay, I go to maps. I'm going to go to my grassy path. I'm going to go to my test, start game. Open the gate. And turn. And I should see that thing. Summon a creature now. Summon a creature! Summon him! No! I don't like it when things don't work. Ah! Is it still... Let's go back. I'm assuming it's going to still say it fizzled. There are no legal targets. Why are there no legal targets? Why is it illegal? That is a complicated one there. That should have worked. I overrode it. I made it legal. Yeah, that's intriguing. No legal targets. Okay. Yeah. All right, we're gonna get more aggressive here. I'm gonna make this thing work. I'm gonna force it to work. I will not accept this program not doing what I want. So let's see. My next idea, since I thought that would for sure do it, is that we are now going to, I mean, I'm assuming the reason this is not working is because somewhere in the validation check it's pulling the primary targeting def from the original def itself. And that's my best guess as to what happened here. Yeah, let's see. Let's check. Let's look at. We're gonna look at is legal, and I might check and see if I can figure out where it's going wrong here. Somewhere it's throwing that illegal action board on here. We need to figure that out, and we're gonna put a variable in there that just tells it to ignore the check. That's how we're gonna take care of this. So it's legal because it had no targets was the message we got in the log. It fizzles because there are no legal targets. Okay, so we know that it's getting to this guy here. There are no legal targets because that's the fizzle message for that. No legal targets. And the reason it had no legal targets is because somewhere before it calls the is legal, it's doing a validation check, either in the cast or the resolve phase. It checks them both. Okay. Check target legality if actions were triggered since the time this action was cast. It's probably here. Designated primary targets equals validate primary targets. Okay, and so what this is doing is rechecks conditions for targeting, but not the targeting method itself. It's probably not going to be that guy. Let's go back. This one is, and we don't care about designated secondary targets because it's not, that shouldn't be a concern. This type is triggered. Designated primary targets equals. Okay, we may have to do some trace statements here to figure out where exactly it is catching this guy. The other place it could be doing it is in the resolve step. And somewhere in here it will check, probably here. This is the one I think it is because it's actually rechecking the targeting. Okay, let's see how it's doing this. Primary targeting. Yeah. But we swapped that action's primary targeting out. Oh, yes, it is definitely here. And I can tell you why our hack didn't work as well. Our hack is not working because I'll explain a little bit about the action process. This is getting pretty complicated technique-wise, but whenever an action is cast, it actually has to create two actions. And the reason for that is you've got the original action, that's the casting action, but then you've got the kind of the echo of that goes out. And the reason I had to separate it is so that there's a way to interrupt the one that goes out with things like counterspells. So the cast action is its own independent thing, and then it creates a clone of itself. And that way you can have multiple instances of this event triggering and firing, and the original one is not necessarily affected. So what's happening is the reason it failed is because it gets to the resolve step, and the resolve action's using the clone. It's checking the primary targeting of the clone, and we modified the targeting method of the original action, but not the primary targeting of the clone. And therefore, the card will fail because it's still checking it here and saying that that space is occupied. And so really what we need to be doing is modifying the clone with a new targeting. So we have a nice opportunity here to actually kind of kill two birds with one stone. And it's going to be a little bit of a hack, but again, the reason I was concerned about directly modifying the targeting was because in the event that the player undoes the sequence, we always have to have a way to restore game state back during undos. And whenever I modify something without using our command pattern, it has no way to restore it back to its original state during the undo step. It just keeps it there. And so we had the potential to create all kinds of bugs not doing it. However, if we were to just say modify the clone, then we wouldn't have to be concerned because the clone will be recreated each time that a new action is used. So the clone is a unique instance, and that we can modify safely. So what we need to do here is really create a way to modify the clone itself. Okay, and that should take care of this. This is kind of fun. I did not anticipate this level of trouble with this spell, but we're going to get this to work. So really, what we want to do here is when we set the primary targeting, we're not going to set primary targeting of the actual thing. We're going to create a new property in here, and I'm going to make this the private. Oh wow, that's typing slow. We're going to call this the clone primary targeting. Okay. And I'm going to make this of type def targeting. Okay. And what I'm going to do here is take the clone, and we're going to set that guy here instead. And we should probably rename this as well. Refactor that and rename this to clone primary targeting, so we know we're not modifying the original. Okay. Okay, and now what we need to do is we need to actually have this set when the clone's created. So there's a process at which the clone's created, so I don't know where that's at. Let's just find the clone. And I have a little clone factory here that does that. Oh goodness, where is that clone function though? Come on. Nope, nope, nope. Find it. Somewhere does that clone exist? Clones. Clone. Nope. Gonna keep looking. There it is. Get clone. Okay, this is what we need. Okay, and see, this is where that issue was coming into problem, because when the clone was created... Oh, interesting. Oh, okay. It had an object pool version. I'm not quite sure why this was set the way it was, but what we're going to do just down here, I believe, if I do this, okay, if, what's the word we want here? Clone primary targeting is not equal to null. Clone dot primary targeting equals clone primary targeting. And then we're also going to have to set this clone primary targeting to null so it doesn't try to do this every single time. So if we've got one of these defined, we're going to set it here when it creates the clone and then no more. This is a really weird hack, but this will actually satisfy all of our necessary conditions to have this work and not cause further bugs. And again, I can go back and clean up the refactoring of that later. I don't like to leave variables laying around sloppy in the function like that, but for now, let's try that and see what we get. All right, republish. And we're going to check our channel here for any questions. No questions so far. Everyone enjoying the stream so far? Is this educational? Is it interesting? Okay, let's close down our old instance. Quit that. All right, now it's going to summon that monster this time. I can feel it. I can feel it. Okay. Maps. Grassy path. Why do I always do this to myself? I put the hardest card to make first. Okay, start game. And here we are. And give me the fate card, please. All right. The moment of truth. Let's see if we get a creature out of it. Here we go. Open the gate. Oh, jeez. I'm getting sad now. I'm assuming it's the same answer. There's something we're missing here. Still no legal targets. Wow. That is very interesting that that's happening. Because I had thought that here we would be passing the targeting. That's quite surprising. So we're gonna have to do a little bit harder digging now. But before I do the digging, I'm gonna hack it. We're gonna make this thing work just to verify I'm not going crazy here, and then we're gonna come back and solve it properly. Okay, so now we get aggressive. This is where I start just ripping apart the code in frustration. Okay. So we know it's this legal check that's causing it. My best guess is it's this one. So we're just gonna turn off this check so it doesn't bother to do it. Okay. If actions were triggered since the time this action was cast. Let's just take and say source toggle comment. Haha! No more legal checks for you, compiler. All right. I think that's where the error is happening. I'm just taking guesses here now. This is this is just me in frustration. I'm not taking time to think it through. I want results. This is how I do things. Some programmers will take and try to solve it all in their head first, go through all the logic, make a clean thing. Oftentimes because you have to. Sometimes programs don't compile in 10 seconds. They take 10 minutes. And if my compiler took that long, you better believe I would be, scrutinizing before it. Back in the day, you used to have to program on these punch cards, and you'd spend days sorting these cards and get one shot at it compiling. That would drive me mad. I would not like to work that way. I don't want to have to think so hard as to simulate the entire thing in my head. I want to just go with my gut and get the best reaction from the program itself. It's just nicer that way. It's more satisfying to go with your gut than have to overthink things. But that's just my style. Everyone's got a different way of doing their programming. Okay. Ah! In your face, program! It summoned him. That was pretty cool. So there we go. It created a new creature for us through the gate. That was pretty fun. So definitely something in that legality check. We now know where the problem is isolated. There's definitely a way that we can easily solve that problem now that I know where it's at. A simple like a little pointer or Boolean flag can easily turn that check off. But that got it working. Now in this case, it didn't play the card because it was my own unit summoning it. But let's say for sake of argument, we had the AI casting the spell. We probably want to know what was coming through the portal. So we're going to go back and go to test gate here. And I am going to turn on my debug options to show me the AI cards. Good. I want to see the AI cards. We're going to start this over. We're going to have the AI open a portal. Okay. Notice how when the AI plays the card, you see the card playing. That's because by default, I have the cast animation show when it's any player but you. If you're the one playing the card, you don't need to see yourself play the card because you kind of already know what you dropped. Maybe in this case, I should have the card always pop up since it's kind of auto playing the card. But we're going to end turn here. And this is going to summon him immediately because since we played on my turn, the start of his next turn is right now. Oh, look at that! Another bug. This is why we test things. Animation name, get animation cast loop. Aha! Oh, Ross, what have you done here? You tried to have a placeable play a card and it doesn't have animation for itself. Look at that. That was not good. Alright, well, we can probably just follow the breadcrumbs here. So this happened in our cast loop animation, which was triggered by the cast thing. Yeah, why, Ross, what were you thinking here? Placeable should never be able to try and cast something. Yeah, look at that, huh? That was a silly mistake on my part. Okay, so what we did here is HM, I guess it would be called animate cast is where I'm guessing the problem is here. Animate cast command. Alright, so this is our view system. This is a view error, not a logic error. Not a game logic error, rather. And somewhere in here I'm telling this thing that's got to play an animation for casting a card. But specifically, we have an issue where it's trying to play the cast loop. So let's look for the loop. Cast loop animation. Here we go. If the action's cast and ability action user view and action has cast context range. Okay, so this is the problem here. It's this guy. And unit view cast loop. That would be the problem. Silly Ross. What were you thinking? Now, I am intrigued by this, why I didn't have... This should just be doing nothing if it's a placeable. And I believe that's how most of my other things are handled. But maybe not. Let's take a look. So this is the actual unit view that controls all the animations to the character. And somewhere in here, I should be being smarter about things. And I know I've got an example of where that would happen. Probably the defeat is where I'm thinking I would have an example of where I would normally check to see if it's even has the animation before it attempts to do it. Let's look at the defeat animation. Interesting. Huh. I'm trying to track down where I have my... Ah, this is where it is. If it's a placeable, it's supposed to end it. This is where it should be not trying to do an animation because it's not a unit. Interesting. So let's go back to that other guy here. This is the one I wanted to find. Why didn't he do it? And the error we got was... Do it again. In the get animation name and the cast loop. Okay, so cast loop. Get animation name. Draw cast. Interesting. And then playing animation key. Cast windup. Oh. Bother. So somewhere in here it doesn't like something. I'm trying to think which one of these things it is. Yeah, it should have... Let's take a look at that again. Get animation, get default animation for get animation name. This is a very complicated algorithm that goes through and determines the appropriate animation to play given any number of contexts here. And it was the get default animation. So let's see, we were looking at here as draw cast. Something in here is causing an issue where it, no, if unit view body armature equals null, return null. Do we have a case for null? Interesting. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to do this again. I'm going to play this to the debugger because I'm getting lazy now. I don't want to have to think too hard to figure out what exactly is null. This is a simple matter of telling it if something's null, then just bypass it. Basic error handling here. Meltros! Welcome to the stream, Meltros. Glad to have you here. We are attempting to build the Gate of Fate. And it seems that my fate today is that my program does not is not favoring me today. We're getting all kinds of challenges, if you will, inhibiting us from getting this spell to completion. And I'm sad because I was hoping to get a lot of cards done, and it seems like this card is just going to eat up a lot of our time today. But I really want it to work. We're almost there. We've bypassed one of the bugs. I'm trying to fix another one with the AI using the card, and in just a minute here I'm going to have an answer as to why this bug is happening. Okay, so here we go. We want start that over again. The AI needs to have the Gate of Fate card because we're going to have the AI play it. The issue is that we want to have the AI show the Gate of Fate summon creature that's coming through the portal to the player when it comes through. And so it's going to bug out right here. There it is. Oh, die. And boom. Okay, so if unitView.bodyArmor... Oh, jeez, Ross. No. This should have been so blatantly obvious. Okay, so here's a problem. A placeable object does not have a body because it's a thing. It's just a placeable. So it's trying to access a property that doesn't exist. So the solution here is simply if unitView.bodyArmature not equal to null. And that. Oh, geez. And we need to have that same thing here. Well, it's good I fixed this now because we'll have to deal with these problems appearing later. Else if animation key, that all looks okay, but we need the same check down here. Okay, so now we're just checking to make sure if there's no body armatures. All right, that'll fix this error. Okay, save that. In your face, program. We're slaying some bugs. Slaying the bugs. Bug Slayer. That should be a creature of some kind. When we get the, I think earlier M. Zakola was talking about what our plans are for the bugs. We have a whole race of insectoids. To be honest, while we're waiting to compile, I don't know quite what their powers are yet. I just personally really like bugs because I am a nerd and proud of that, and I've just always been fascinated by bugs ever since I was a kid, and I knew I wanted to have some kind of bugs in the game. And as far as their powers, I feel like they need like something cohesive as a faction, you know, like but I don't quite know what their powers are yet. We just sort of designed the characters, the art, and I don't quite know what their abilities are going to be yet. But I think there should definitely be some kind of a character called Bug Slayer, just because it would be funny to have that in the game. Okay, and we're gonna go ahead and restart this again and attempt to see the computer play the card. Now please give me the face card. Yes. Okay, one more time. Okay. Okay, so now what I'm expecting is the Gate of Fate should, in fact, show me the creature it's summoning. We know it's going to be one of these guys because that's all the computer has in its deck, is these guys. Oh, come on, really? Still? This is just not my day. This is just not my day. Alright, so still with the get default animation name. There's still some kind of bug in there. Let's close this down. Alright, well we know it's in that method now. Where's that default animation name? Okay, if body armor not equal to null. If body armor not equal to null. Oh, I guess I did have one here I needed to check. Sorry. I didn't see that hiding down there. There. Sometimes it just really irks me. Just go in there and like, oh, why? Okay. Maltros. I was the same with spiders as a kid. Kept them in jars and stuff. Yes, that's awesome. I used to have praying mantises as pets. That's my favorite insect by far because they are just massive. They look like aliens. They move so interestingly. Their eyes are cool, and it was fascinating to watch a praying mantis eat. You just kind of have them in your little bug environment, and you give them a grasshopper or a cricket or something like that, and they just sit there and wait until it gets close, and then they attack. And a praying mantis always likes to eat the brains first for some reason. It's just like it's the delicacy for its favorite part. Maybe it's out of mercy, get the insect fully dead first, so it doesn't have to suffer through being eaten alive. I'm not too sure, but they are fascinating creatures. Okay. What is this, the sixth time? Six times a charm? I can't even say third time's a charm. Okay. Oh, come on, really? Draw the card. Okay. And now, without further ado, show me this thing work, please. Ah, there it is. Okay. Ah, okay. What? Oh, dear. Look at that. You see what happened? It summoned it twice. That's no good. That's another bug. We have to go back. I see the error of my ways is that we did not put any kind of constraints in the number of targets. So here's the Gate of Fate card, right? And we have designate all targets. This means it's going to go through every next card in the deck. So effectively what's happening is it's going to go through the AI's deck right now and summon every single card they have on top of each other. And so we don't want that. We want to have just one. And that should take care of that. This is why I love developing this way. Having the ability to witness firsthand an isolated test case of the new thing you're working on, absent of any other factors, is just fantastic. Because could you imagine trying to see this happen in the context of the game without this? Like the madness you would have to go through to set this up each time and verify it. It would just be nuts. Okay, so now one creature through the gate, please, if you will. Okay, there he is, coming through the gate, and boom. Look at that. Brilliant. A functional ability. I like that. That was fun. That's going to be really cool. Now imagine if that was you can make some really fun decks here. You know, you can have a mixture of squirrels and dragons, and just for fun. You know, like it's not always about who wins. It's about winning in the most, I said, creative way possible is what our game's about. But I could just love to see a deck somebody would make that has squirrels and dragons and a bunch of gate cards, just to mess with your opponent so they wouldn't know it's coming through. Is it going to be a squirrel or is it going to be a dragon? I don't know, but it would be pretty funny. There's an interesting edge case I had thought about that. I always like to think of edge cases. This is something I always used to do at when I worked in the AAA industry, was always challenge our dev team to think about the weird things that could happen in certain situations. And one of the edge cases I came up with for the gate card was, would a counterspell counter it? That's the first question. And should a counterspell counter it? Right? I don't really know the answer to that. I haven't put much thought into it because I'm not the kind of person that likes to necessarily think through all the logic. I just want to see it happen. So we're going to test that. I need to see if I have a deck that's got counterspell in it, because I'm not quite sure what will happen if we put a counterspell into something. Oh, here, Trap Test has got a counterspell. Perfect. We're going to use that. I don't know what's going to happen. We're going to find out and see, because I feel like that's an edge case that could happen quite easily in the game and that players will probably have opinions about. No, I want mine to be Trap Test. Okay. Okay, I'm going to cast Counterspell. Oh wait, no, before I do that, we need to have him summon the gate. Otherwise, it's going to counter the gate itself. Summon the gate. Alright, now I'm going to Counterspell. So let's find out. Will that be countered? I don't know. Aha! It is! So you can counter the creature coming to the gate. All right, I need to ask our audience here: should counterspell counter creatures coming to the gate? Yes or no? Since your caster's not technically the one casting it. All right, I will take your votes now. What's the wording on gate? That is a great question. The wording on gate is as follows. Let me do this whole thing. Oops. The wording on gate is: Gate of Fate. Place a 0/5 portal on the board. At the start of your next turn, it summons the next unit in your deck. Should this counter or not counter? Give you guys a minute to think about that one. Does counterspell spell next spell cast by opponent? Okay, that's a great question. Counterspell reads: counter the next enemy spell cast. Okay. Yeah, that's a tricky one, because technically the wording on this says it summons next unit in your deck. I suppose you could have this read: it casts the next unit in your deck, and that would make it in line with the right verbiage. I don't know. It's just, I like to bring these issues up because players are going to anticipate and expect different things, and it's good to think about this as a designer. I haven't put a lot of thought into this. This kind of came to me last night as a potential thing to talk about during the stream. This is really a design problem at this point. This is not a development problem. This is an issue of what is the right thing that should happen in the situation. And I don't know. And that's the fun thing, is that it could be either way. It's the right thing is whatever we decide it is, and how we decide to word it. The gate. Okay, Maltras says, well, the gate is under their control, so technically it is an enemy spell cast. So I suppose that would probably be correct to have it counter. Probably what would be a better way to have it worded then is that instead of this saying it summons, which implies the creature is just coming through, that it attempts to cast. Which is not bad, because then you kind of have two ways of dealing with it. In fact, a fun way that you could then counter the Gate of Fate. And it's sort of the reason that I'll give you some context to this card as well. Why the Gate of Fate card, right? I like to create cards that are different and feel fun in contrast to some of the other games that are out there. And this one in particular, I think, is very unique because it's sort of creating this sense of urgent doom coming your way. It's meant to help you get bigger creatures out, but it's also there's an opportunity here where the opponent can react to it. And that's what I like about this card is the tension that, oh crap, there's a portal on the board and there could be a dragon or a demon or something big coming through it. I don't know, but I don't want to find out what it is. And so, I expect when players see the card Gate, they're going to put all their fire on it and try to stop it because nobody wants to deal with the unknown. The unknown is scary. And it's that element that I think makes this card fun. The psychological tension of what is going to come through the Gate is gets under your skin. That makes it interesting. But assuming we change the wording here to something like it casts the next summon spell in your deck, then potential way to react to it would be like, oh, I'll just play a counter spell because I know at the start of the player's next turn, this thing's going to attempt to summon something, and my counter spell is guaranteed to stop whatever is coming through the Gate. So I could see a good design reason for the counter spell working. And I'm going to check over and see here. With the Gate is under control, I can honestly see it both ways. The way the wordings are at the moment, I could see countering it working. Okay. And what is the wording on Fireball? Fireball reads, deal 5 damage to visible 3x3 area. Okay. So that is the Gate of Fate spell. I think that's all the time I want to spend on that spell today. I just wanted to kind of give these interesting edge cases and showcase it a bit. Kind of a difficult spell to make, but it will be functional. I will go back and clean up that edge case we had to turn off at the targeting. I won't take more time doing the stream. I'd like us to kind of move on to another card. And I also want to move on to a point that Imzacola has raised in the chat. I did see your comment. I'm going to read it out loud now. And what Imzacola has said is that I really hope this game doesn't have much Hearthstone copies like Demonic Projection. It's just a Mind Blast. Okay, so I'm going to go back. I'm going to look at our Demonic Projection card here, which reads as deal 5 psychic damage to the enemy summoner. So this was meant to be kind of like a hallucination to give the Void spell some more direct damage. I'm not familiar with the card he's talking about from Hearthstone, but let's go ahead and look it up so I can learn. What's the card called again? Mind Blast. Mind Blast Hearthstone. Perfect. Okay. Okay, so what does this card do here? It says deal 5 damage to the enemy hero. Okay. 2. Oh, yeah. Okay, so I could definitely see that is kind of eerily similar. Wow. 5 psychic damage. Okay, so it's dealing 5 damage, and oddly, it costs the same too. That is a very odd coincidence happening there. But yeah, let's address that because I don't want to give the impression that our game is in any way associated with another game or that we are just taking existing things from other games. This kind of stuff happens in game development all the time where it's just the nature of designers having similar ways of seeing solutions to different problems, similar needs in the game. In this case, this card again was designed to be a way to fill the gap with more direct damage in the Void arena. But I think it is very important that we look for opportunities to be distinctive. So let's take this very good example that's been raised by one of our viewers and address that by making this card distinctive, different, more fun, and more interesting. So I'm going to ask our viewers now, what do you guys think would be an interesting way to make this spell more fun, more distinctive, more interesting than what we've got listed here? Okay. Maybe it okay, that's a cool card though. I like it. Okay, so Maltras says, would a card that can rearrange the cards in your deck be a viable card to make? Okay, we'll come back to that. Maltras says, it's a cool card. I'm assuming he's referring to the Demonic Projection. Maybe have it do damage to the summoner using it. Aha, yes! That would be an interesting way to have it be distinctive, is that it comes at a cost, right? So instead of it just being an easy shot of damage, you're going to take some pain as well. Maybe the whole, I guess you could say the mythos behind the card is that The person using the card has to reach deep down into the dark, nightmarish realm of the void to call upon the demonic projection they're going to send toward the enemy summoner. But in doing so, it affects them as well. So maybe what we could do is reduce the cost of the card, have it have a cost in blood, so to speak, in that it damages your summoner a little bit, but then deals some extra damage to the enemy summoner. It could be a great way to help with pacing of the game. So this becomes a still direct damage card, but you're controlling the when the damage happens, right? And there's a lot of strategy behind that, because even though you may be damaging yourself, if you've got a couple of these cards like ready to play on top of each other, you could win the game in that turn, right? Let's say the opponent had 10 life left. You've got 2 demonic projections. You're going to take some hits, but because you're controlling when the damage happens, you get to say how and when that damage occurs to control the victory of that game. Okay, so I like that. That's a great idea. I'm just trying to think of some other ideas off the top of my head. Like maybe it terrifies them in some way, like it creates a horrifying effect and it causes the enemy to run away screaming. Something fun that would kind of give it like a sense of like, ah. I could see them throwing their hands up in the air and just running away scared from wherever the origination of the spell was cast from. It could be kind of fun. Maybe the spell could extend to target any kind of unit, so it's not limited to just summoners, but any kind of character. So what are your guys' thoughts? Which of these ideas do you want to go down and explore? I'm happy to make whatever accommodation for you that you think makes the most sense and sounds the most fun. Really, it comes down to what's the most fun. What gets you the most excited in using a card like that? I'm gonna go to that card and do some edits on it. Let's see here. Spells. Demonic projection. So here's the actual card. It currently does nothing. Okay. And is Imza Corella there? I would hope that you would have some thoughts on this since you've raised the concern. Um, I certainly don't want to come across as being derivative of another title, and I want to make sure that we stand out as distinctive, fun, unique. All right. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and just start putting some effects in here for now while we're thinking about it. I'm gonna go with Maltros's idea since that's the one we've got right now, and we're gonna do attribute. Okay, the one we want to have is subtract from attribute. Okay, we want life remaining. And I want number. Okay, we're gonna say let's increase the damage of the spell. I think so. We're gonna do that. I think the cost is right. I think it would be a little bit too potent to have this cost 1, even if it is hurting your summoner. So let's say it does 6 damage. Maybe it does 6 psychic damage to the enemy summoner and 3 damage to you. Okay. That's kind of an interesting trade-off. Could be kind of fun to toy with that a little bit. So you're getting hurt, but you're dealing a massive more amount of damage to the enemy summoner. This could be a very good closer finish. You get the summoner down to a low bit of health, and you use this card as a finisher. I kind of like that. Okay, we need to give it traits. Damage type needs to be arcane. But more importantly, what gives the ability to do psychic damage. Psychic is a keyword in our game, and what it means is it attacks through armor. So unlike Pierce, which destroys the armor outright and then deals damage, psychic damage goes under it. So we have a special way of programming that, which is to first we have to set an attribute, and that attribute is ignore armor to 1. We put that first, and then we're going to need another one that clears the flag at the end. Set attribute ignore armor to 0 on target. Okay, and then we need one more effect, which is subtract from attribute. Life remaining on the, let's say 3 on the ability user. Okay. Let me put that up here. So we're gonna ignore armor on all targets. We need to subtract from life attribute remaining on the target. The ability user is going to take 3, and then we're going to remove the armor penetration. Okay, and then since I'd like to do everything dynamically, we're going to put in our values here so that they're tied directly to the ability and not hard-coded in the description. This is so that if we tune this later, the description will always be consistent with it. This should be AMP2. There we go. So this is why I do that. If I change this later and say, oh, I want this to be 7 instead, it changes on the card. We don't want to have to worry about the description and the effect mismatching. Okay. I'm going to check our chat here. Okay. Does the type matter to the summoner, to the person using the spell? Maybe give the summoner a curse that lifts only when they kill one of your units or something. Interesting. What does the curse do? 1 damage a turn? I don't know. Maybe something like poison but stronger. Or maybe something like debuff their health, like a -2 health until they kill an enemy unit. Okay, interesting. Okay, cool. Why does it have to be on the summoner? That's a great point. It doesn't have to be. Let's remove that. I agree. You don't need that to be on summoner anymore. I think at this point, since the spell is about dealing damage at the cost of dealing damage, we are. Let's get rid of that. 2. Deal 6 psychic damage to target enemy and 3 damage to you. Okay. Yeah. Save. Okay. Now we need to determine some conditions. We want visible, and we want target subject, target, property, team, not equal to target subject, ability user, property, team. We only want this to target units, not trees. So target subject, target, trait. We want, what is that, type? Type unit is greater than or equal to number 1. Okay. There we go. Deal 6 psychic damage to target enemy and 3 damage to you. Visible unit who is an enemy and is a unit. 3 damage to you. Ignore armor. I think the spell's ready to test. We want to give it some VFX first. And VFX is something that I'm going to do a full polish pass on once the game is, feature complete. We've got the single player in there. We're going to come back and address things. But for now, I'm going to use one of my placeholder effects. And we've got some other psychic attacks in the game, so I'm going to use one of those and just copy over the effects we're using there for Psychic Blast, the sound and all that. I'm trying to think of what that spell was called. Here, Psychic Blast, perfect. Yeah, we're going to just copy over that for now. It's a psychic attack. At some point, I mean, it would be so cool, wouldn't it, to have like a giant visage of the demon actually appear over their head and like make some kind of evil cackling, right? I imagine like a really fun VFX like that. But for now, we're just going to use the default energy beam blast we're using just to get it in the game and functional so you can play test it, have fun with it. What was that spell called again? Demonic Projection? Yeah. Okay. So this was our cast sound, was this. And our animation was this. We want to make sure that the cast animation is used. Psychic damage. Okay. Save. Okay. And then we're going to go to Dex. And I'm going to go and throw this in one of our test decks. Let's go ahead and just throw it in this one. Trap test. That's fine. Spell. Demonic Projection. Update. Save. Maps. Grassy path. Start game. Okay. Let's move him up so we can see him. Alright, so it should be doing damage through armor, and it should be doing 6 to him and 3 to me. Ah, interesting. It did 4 to me, but I think that's correct. Oh, we have a major problem here. You see how it says 6? Well, the Pyromancer is supposed to deal spell damage +1. That's why we got bonus damage. Because this spell deals damage, but I made a mistake in the card tagging. So we're going to go back and fix that real quick. Spell is Demonic Lash, or Demonic Projection. Here we go. This should be not amp, it's damage. And this should be damage as well. Okay, that's just a different coding tag I use so that we can signal that that thing is being modified through the damage property. And now it should show the actual markers on the card now. At least I think. Okay. Yes, there we go. Deals 7 psychic damage to target enemy and 4 damage to you. There we go. That's what I wanted to see. So it's even more deadly when you're casting it with Lee the Pyromancer. Okay, and it did penetrate the armor? Did we check that last time? It sure did. Damn. Take that, troll. Ouch. That's a pretty beefy spell. Jeez. That should just kill him outright. Alright. Cool. Let's verify one other thing. I want to make sure it actually goes through if you're the summoner and you have armor. Who's got armor? Someone that's got armor. Yeah. Yeah, the knight's got armor. Perfect. Let's make him the summoner. Verify it still takes damage from him. Okay, so it should be doing psychic damage to him. No, that's not good. So it did psychic damage to the first guy, but not to the second guy. And that is because we did not set the flag for psychic damage. I would think it should be consistent for both, so let's go change that. Spells. We want Demonic Projection. I'm going to go back here, and we need to do the same thing we did here, which was to set attribute, ignore armor to 1 on the ability user. And then we have to clear it at the end. Set attribute, ignore armor to 0 on ability user. And basically we have to just sandwich that damage in between that. So move that down. Okay. So set armor, ignore armor to 1 ability user. Okay, now it should deal psychic damage and ignore the caster's armor as well. Let's verify. Grassy Path. Start game, and boom. There we go. All right, cool. That was a pretty easy one to make. Oh, 0 damage to you. What? Oh. Ah! Demonic Projection. This is no longer, I added more abilities so that these numbers I add correspond to the effect order. This is probably number 3 now, I imagine. Nope, number 4. There we go. Save. Okay, one last time. Maps. Grassy Path. Start game. Boom! I like that. That is a cool way to deal with that. So you get a massive burst of damage for 6 for 2 mana, but you're going to take 3 yourself. This would also be great in a deck like the Lich King, where he can quite easily recover that health back. But to deal 6 in one shot is really nice. Yeah, because that can be a great finisher at the end there. All right. Let me just take a moment to review our channel chat here. Okay. Where did we leave off? Oh wow, this card just got amazing. Haha. Yes, I will be using it, says Maltros. And keep my Cleric Guardian close and her spell damage plus. Nice. There are so many cards I'm excited for that need abilities, says Imzakorala. Yes. Well, I want to take a special shout out. Thank you so much, Imzakorala, for pointing out the striking coincidence similarity with an existing game's ability and providing us this very engaging opportunity to solve that problem and make us more distinctive and unique through your feedback. I appreciate that. That is something I take to heart. That's very important that we do. And I think that we've got a much more versatile, more fun card now as a result of that collaboration. So thank you so much for that. I'm really happy with how this turned out. That's a really good way to deal with that. Okay, great. So that's 2 cards down. Now we're just 1 card shy of beating our record from last stream. Let's see if we can get 3 cards done on one stream. You can see I always like to butt off more than I can chew. I went for 8. I went from 2 last time. I wanted to get 3 done. That's just how I am, though. I like to push myself. Let's see if we can get another one done. Okay, so feel free to shout out. There's no particular order to these. We've got the first 2 done. We can go straight in order, or we can pick another one. Which card do you guys want to see us do next here? I'm gonna take a sip of water while you shout it out. First one to type it gets to decide. Choose Ross's fate. Interact with your streamer. What are we gonna make next, guys? Really, no input. I'm just gonna go down the line then if I don't get a response soon. Trace Brothers, welcome! Welcome so much. Glad to have you on the stream with us here. Yes, we're having fun. This is my second time ever streaming, the second developer stream we've done, giving folks a chance to directly interact with the process, become a truly community-driven developer. Glad to have you here. Trace is another well-known developer for those on the stream that aren't familiar. The Trace Brothers are known for making a fantastic suite of games on Android first, and now it's, of course, cross-platform. They're on Steam and iOS and everywhere else, but I've long followed their work. Very impressed with the level of success they've had as indies. The level of marketing they've been able to achieve is definitely something to write home about. So I'm honored to have you on the stream with us here. It means a lot. Thanks for coming by and supporting us. All right, we got votes here. All right, we're going to take them in the order they've been giving. Dark Temptation is first, and then Cure. All right, Dark Temptation. This one's fun. So I'll give you some background on this card here. Dark Temptation reads, give target enemy minion armor 3. At the start of your next turn, control them. So in many ways, Dark Temptation is similar to the psychological effect I wanted to create with Gate of Fate of impending doom. I just, as a player, I love opportunities like this in games where there's just this sense of impending doom. For some reason, it creates tension and it's fun. It's not just an outright, I'm going to steal this guy and there's nothing you can do about it. It's, just so you know, I'm going to be taking this guy next turn. What are you going to do about it? So there's all kinds of fun ways to react to that, right? The player who has been tempted, so to speak, can maybe use their cleric to cure the spell and then keep the 3 armor, which would be freaking awesome. Or they could play something that could counter it. They could destroy their unit. They could send them on a suicide mission to try and have them as far away from their hero as possible, right? All kinds of fun that can happen with that as far as the tension building goes. So I'm excited to build that one. Okay, and the other thought I had with this is I've painstakingly gone through this process of making it so that you can have equipable gear in the game and actually affect the skins of the characters. And so wouldn't it be awesome if you don't just take and enchant them, but their appearance actually is affected. They actually get to don this evil armor. And this is one of our Dreadnought characters here that's shown. So we're going to actually try and attempt to make this a really cool experience with that card. Okay. So the first thing we'll do is go into the card itself, and I was tweaking this a little bit last night. What is that called? Dark Temptation? Yeah. Okay. So in order for the armor to work, it has to have a certain condition. Like I can't equip armor necessarily on a character that is like, let's say a squirrel, because the humanoid armor is not going to fit a squirrel, but a humanoid armor will fit anything that's humanoid. Dragons are humanoid. Our insectoids are humanoid. Humans are humanoid. So we want a humanoid target. Now, this could certainly change. We could make it so that the squirrel gets tempted, but he just doesn't get the armor. He just gets the effect of the armor. But for now, let's try and figure out how this is going to work. So we're going to do a couple things. We need to give them armor, and we need to give them an effect that's going to possess them at the start of the next turn, right? So let's start with making this armor. We're gonna go ahead and create a new equipment card, and you can see how this works. This is pretty fun. So we're gonna do new, and we're gonna say Dreadnought armor. Okay, and we're gonna give them a helmet. So this is our little template. This is how I create equipment in the game, similar to how I create units. And the character we want is, I think they're underneath these. We used to call them Chaos Warriors, but we changed that. Darkhelm. There we go. And I want the armor to be, and maybe the helmet's too much. We might want to still preserve the face of them. Darkhelm. Oh, sorry, that's the helm. We want the, there we go. There we go. Maybe the helm's a little too much. Maybe let's take the helmet off, just so you can still see that it's your character. I like the idea that you can still see his face. So he'll get this nice beefy armor, and the armor is going to give you a status effect of ability armor. That's under our abilities, armor. Okay, and here's what's cool about these things is that as you do them, there you go, that's 3. Hit save. Oh god, this should not be a chaos card. There we go. Armor 3. Yep. Perfect. Okay, so that should make the armor. So it's got an appearance of that. It doesn't affect our weapons, it just affects the armor. So now we got Dreadnought armor. Perfect. Okay, so now we're going to go back to that spell, Dark Temptation, and we're going to start by giving it a simple effect of equip. And I want it to be Dreadnought armor on target. And the targeting type needs to be equipable. Okay. And next we want to have it be, we want it to be an enemy. So target subject, target, target, property. I want it to be the team is not equal to the target, the ability user's team. There we go. Okay, and I think equipable will probably take into account factoring out trees, but we'll test. We'll put that to the test and see. All right, so for right now, we're going to just go ahead and test it as it is and see that whatever character that we target enemies, and that in fact gives them the Dreadnought armor 3, and then we'll add the control as the next step. So let's save that. As always, I'm going to go in here and throw it into one of my decks. Let's just call this, instead of trap test, we'll call this trap. We're going to call this temp test, just so I can keep myself clean. And we have the demonic projection in there. We have, let's put the spell Dark Temptation in there now. Okay, there we go. I'm going to go back to my decks here, go to our Grassy Path, level, test. I already have the temp test selected, and start it up. Clever name already taken. Hello, Ross. I'm here again to break your engine. Welcome. Welcome, my friend. I hope you succeed in that. I only learn when things break. You have to, no pain, no gain, right? All right, so what we've done is we've created our new spell for Dark Temptation. So far, all it's intended to do is target an enemy, which it does. It does not target ourselves, and it should give them some sweet new armor. Oh yeah, that new armor feels good. And sure enough, he's got Dreadnought armor, and it gives him armor 3. So that part of the first part of our ability has worked successfully. Armor is working as expected. One thing I'm curious about, I think with equipment is interesting. I think, does equipment target anywhere on the board? It does. So it doesn't take into account visibility. I may have to go and change that later because it feels weird that I can just like throw armor at them from anywhere on the board. I should probably make that at least that they're visible as well. Okay, let's see if I can give the troll some new armor. Here you go, troll. Isn't that fun how that does that? So there's an interesting story about the armor and how it's able to do that. The crazy thing is that this will even work if we put it on to a female character. Let's see if we give them a female character. Let's give them the here. We'll give them the no. Cheery is probably not the best female character. I want somebody that's got a feminine form. Let's throw an Empress Camille. Let's see. She's not a character in the game yet. She's someone we're working on. She's gonna probably be a summoner, but the armor will even work on her. And so what's interesting about the way the armor algorithm works is that in order to make everything so that they could be placed in anything, that armor is obviously designed for a male body type, not a giant type, not a female type. But I discovered that by the fact that we use these template designs for different humanoid shapes, I could apply some mathematical transformations to it depending upon the type of body so that our armor can be placed on anyone, despite it being 2D, despite it having a totally different shape, by distorting the armor to fit the curvature of the particular body type, allowing us to reuse our assets indefinitely and also make it very versatile, like this case here, where I want to tempt her instead, and she's got the armor now. And notice that it actually looks decent on her. It doesn't look like it's fitting to her form. Is a point I'm trying to say. Cool. All right, so the first part of that spell is done. Although in this case there are no wrong trousers. Exactly, there are no wrong trousers. Okay. Next thing we need to do is create the psychological effect of the temptation. So that is going to be a status effect that will be placed on the character. And we're going to go ahead and create a new one here. And this is going to be a new, should we call it tempted? Tempted. I'm tempted. At the start of your next turn, and I'm trying to think of how I can do this in a way that would make it so that it'll even read the player's name. And I have a way to do that. Start of source. Next turn. I think that's the keyword I use. They control them. We can work on this wording later. I think that source is the keyword I use to have it plug in the person who actually cast it. So this would probably read the player's name. I don't remember because it's been a while since I've made one of these abilities. But this is going to also need to have a triggered ability attached to it. Right now it doesn't have anything, so this won't actually do anything until we make the triggered ability. Triggered abilities all have to be made in a separate table. And the one we're going to use here is this. And what we're going to do is do I want this to be new? Yes, new. Tempt at turn start. We'll just call it that for now. I got to come up with a better way to name these things so that I can find them later. Okay, trigger type, trigger event. We want start of turn. And we want it to affect the person who's using it. In this case, the person who's tempted is the user. And we want to make sure that it's the start of... okay, this is interesting. How did that card read again? Let me take a look. It says, at the start of your next turn, control them. Ugh, okay. So this is actually at the start of the person using it, not the start of the character's turn. So we need to make this condition be trigger subject, event activator, and again, we're looking at player ID is the way we're going to determine if it matches. So we already know the first condition is player ID is equal to, in this case, event source unit, the unit that created the event source. Okay, if player event null. Interesting. That's, I don't know why it says that. I think that's the correct one. We're gonna go with that. I don't trust whatever that last thing says. Oh wait, maybe it is. Sorry, ability source unit. The unit responsible for creating the ability source. That's the one we want. So this is a little confusing, and this is why I put this cheat sheet here. The ability source in this case is the actual status effect. Okay, the unit or status effect this trigger ability is attached to. I've got this other thing down here that explains it even more detail for really complicated things. Example, Unit A affixes a status effect to Unit B called Poison. Poison has a triggered ability. At the start of your turn, take 1 damage. When Unit B takes damage from Poison, a damage event fires. For the damage event, the activator equals Unit B because Unit B is the user of Poison, right? It's kind of weird to think that, but when you get Poison, you're actually damaging yourself. I know it sounds strange. The event source is the Poison status effect. The event source unit is that Unit A because Unit A affixed the poison, and the event target is Unit B because Unit B took the damage. So I've got this really interesting way of mapping things back so that we can have ways to reference the, game terminology meaning of stuff. So anyway, in this case, we determined that it's the source unit, the unit responsible for creating the ability. The person who tempted you is the one whose turn it needs to be. So trigger subject, ability source unit is equal to property player ID, right? We don't want to have it just trigger on anyone's turn, but the tempter's turn. Okay, save. Okay, and this is going to be pretty simple. I think all we need to do here is we target the ability user. Yeah, this is actually interesting. Oh, this ability is trickier than I thought. So what I want to do is I want to apply the mind control on it, but I'm wondering if that's going to work. I almost feel like we may have to make another type of mind control. Because they're going to be tempted, but you're not going to have permanent ownership. You're going to have permanent ownership in the sense that the mind control will be on there. So we want to apply mind controlled onto the target, which would be itself. But the question is, how is it going to know that mind control is the person controlling it is the source unit? That's the part that is funky about it. That's the part that's funky about it. I am not entirely sure how to do that. Yes, that is a weird one. I'm trying to think if we may need to do this a little bit more craftily. That's interesting because the ability user is going to. All right, I need to think about this one. This is tricky. Okay, let's go back to status effects. I need to see how mind control works as I forget. Mind controlled controls you on a fix. And that has something important it does because it has to remember who the last controller was. So there's all kinds of fun things that happen with mind control in general. Mind control. Okay. Set trait flag original controller to. Okay, so this is storing who the original controller ID is so that when it removes it, it can restore that. It sets the attribute player controller to source unit attribute player controller. Player controller to the source unit. Ah, to the person applying it. Yeah, so Dark Temptation won't work the way I'm hoping here, because in this case, the source unit of the mind control effect, if it's applying it to itself, would be itself. So it would basically it would apply a mind control that would be controlling itself. That will not work. Okay, clever name already taken ask, is the player a unit, and then how is regular mind control targeted? Oh, good. So we're addressing how mind control is targeted. Mind control targeting is very complex because of the fact that we need to store the original controller and the person affixing it is the one controlling it. So really, what I need here is we need to have it so that the person who tempted them is the one who is going to be affixing the mind control status. That is really tricky. And I have a thought on how we could do that. The way we do that is rather than applying the tempted status to the person who's got the armor, we could apply the tempted status to the caster of the spell. Then this will work absolutely no problem. The only downside to that is if we do it that way, you won't be able to cast Dispel Magic on your tempted character. You'll have to use a spell to remove the temptation effect on the summoner itself. So it's a little bit harder to deal with the removal of it. I'm going to go with that for now. We can certainly change it, but please voice your opinions because otherwise we have to figure out another way to do it. But to get this done on the stream here, that's how we're going to deal with it. All right. So let's go back to our original triggered ability here. I think as it is, it's going to be okay then. So we called it tempted on start, I think. Tempt on turn start. Yes. Apply status effect mind control on target, which will be the ability user. In this case, but see, now we need a way to target the person who's tempted. So programming is fun. So that won't work either, because if I'm trying to apply the status effect on the ability user, then the summoner will be applying it himself. So that still doesn't work. I need a way to apply a mind control on the person who is tempted. So let's think about this a little more carefully. On the start of the turn, okay, we're going to fire an event. Maybe what we could do is have a way to make it so that there's a flag that says tempted, like a trait, and the targeting in this case then becomes maybe there could be something like the tempter is stored, and the tempter has to target. Let's see, then I think about the confusion of this. If there's multiple instances of this cast, it gets really complicated fast. Okay, yeah, this is a tricky one because of the fact that we no longer have a relationship between the two. Okay, this is solvable. Maybe what we need to do is create an entirely new type of mind control effect. We can't just reuse the existing mind control. It has to literally be a new effect. That's what we're gonna do. We need to make mind control its own thing. So let's go back to mind control interface. Let's look at this. Okay, so do I have a way to detect the target source? I do. And what is the source? The source unit or status of trigger action. I'm trying to figure out if there's a way to... Yes. Okay. I'm starting to piece it together in my head here. This is weird. I'm gonna try and talk you through it, but what we need to do is basically make it work like a mind control. Okay. Mind control on a fix. There's no reason why we shouldn't be able to just reuse this exact effect and just have this. You know what? I'm gonna make this really simple. We're gonna copy this. We're gonna call this new one mind control on turn start, and we're gonna clone this. I think this will work. Because if mind control already works when it affixes it, then it should have no problem working when it fires turn start. Event activator is the status effect. This may change the meaning of these things, though. Target event activator, we're going to target the status effect? That's interesting. Oh, goodness me. This is a tricky one. Event activator is the target here. Set the flag of the controller to ability user player controller. Source unit. What is the source unit? The source unit is the person who put it on you. Yes. On ability user. But then we do have a target for source. Okay, I think this will work. We're going to change this to, we're going to try this. Let's just try it. All right. Start turn. And I no longer want to target the event activator. We need to target the, okay, the ability action. We need to target the source. That's all we need to do. Event source. And then we need to change this condition to be like it was before. So it needs to be on the event activator property. Oh man, this is so cerebral. Player ID is equal to the source unit turn. Okay. property source. Sorry. There we go. Okay. I want to disable this after triggering. Okay. We're going to save that. I'm going to go back to tempted status effect. Oh, goodness me. And we're going to give that status triggered ability here. Mind control and turn start. Okay. I'm just going to relabel that for now just so I can compare it to how the existing mind control works. All right, we also need to have this mind control removed. That's going to reset those properties. So let's do that. I love being able to use my existing work to solve problems because, again, I don't like to think so much. I like to think as least as possible. If I've already solved a problem, I want to forget that problem exists and just know there's a solution I can copy over. Okay, so these two are the same except for that. Interesting. There's an animation it's doing. Armature above character. I'm not sure why it needs that. Okay. I think that'll work. Clever animation name. You know what? I'm on my own team now. So much self-temptation. Yes. Exactly. Okay, guys. So I think I got this figured out. We're going to go and attempt to now put this onto that spell itself. Okay? I'm just going to verify how the mind control works. Because, again, this spell is so similar to mind control. It's basically like a delayed mind control. Where's my existing mind control spell? Here it is. Yeah, all we did was apply the mind control. So, yep. Oh, come to think of it, we need to make sure that we're not tempting summoners while I'm at it, because that would be interesting. You don't want that. Any kind of control spell should never work on the hero. Okay. So let's go ahead and add that condition here. Target subject. Target. What's the property for that? It's an attribute. Attribute. Is hero, I think is what I call it. Is hero is less than, not equal to, less than or equal to number 0. Okay, so don't target heroes with this spell. That would be bad. So that troll should not be tempted because he was the summoner. And we're just going to go ahead and apply the status effect, and this should be delayed mind control, which was mind control tempted onto the target. Okay. Aside from needing some sound and VFX, we should probably also make this cast. There should be no further needs necessary here. This spell should function in theory. We're going to put that theory to the test right now. Okay. Okay, so first things first, I should no longer be able to target the troll. He's the summoner. That's good. Okay, and now let's see what this says. At the start of source, next turn they control them. Yeah, that needs to be fixed. We'll come back to that. In fact, we could probably use our keywords from the mind control. Let's just see what happens. So they should get to control them this turn, I hope. And then we get to control them next turn. Let's see what happens. I'm excited. I'm excited to see if it was that simple to fix it. Wouldn't that be amazing if it just worked? We deserve a little luck today after all the trouble we've been through. Ah, it didn't trigger. So I don't control them. So it did not work. But that's okay. We're going to go ahead and tweak that a little bit. Okay, so first things first, let's just fix that nasty looking text. I don't like that. Mind controlled. Controlled by source name. Okay. Let's go. That's the trigger we need him. At the start of their next turn. There we go. Okay, so now that should read a little bit more correctly as far as the ability goes. All right, now we got to figure out why that trigger didn't fire. Okay, and it seems like it's probably our condition because it doesn't look like it tried to do anything. Mind control turn start. Okay. Okay. Let's start off by doing the simplest fix, which is we're going to remove this condition because this could be wrong. So let's remove that and just see if it controls them on the next turn. That would be fun to see. Okay. Grassy path. Shuffle a random dragon into your deck. I love you guys are suggesting more card ideas. I love that. Please, please do that. Okay. Once again, we're going to try to tempt this girl over here. And if all works out nice, I should control her on this turn. Okay, so there is something fundamentally wrong with the effect itself. Let's see if it even resolved it. Okay, so where did the turn start? Oh, jeez. Ah, okay, it fizzled because there are no legal targets. So it looks like this entire effect did trigger, but it did nothing because there were no targets for it. So the problem was not with our conditioning, it was with the effect itself. And I'm not certain as to why, but let's take a closer look. Oh, I targeted the wrong thing. It should be ability source. Event source is the unit or status effect of the trigger action. Ability source is the unit or status it is attached to. We needed to use ability source. It's a slight and subtle difference, and I hate the wording on that because it's so confusing. We'll put that condition back, but let's first go back and verify that I get control over, which is what I should expect to see happen now. Okay. Join me. Be tempted by the powers I have given you. Yes! She's mine now! She was tempted. That is a good call. Make a channel in our Discord to dump the ideas. Yeah, we probably should have a dedicated Discord channel. I've got the forums now. To be honest, the forums are nice because I can easily track them, but the Discord is easier for players, and it also creates a permanent record, so that is a great call. After the stream, I will go ahead and create a Discord channel for just suggesting ideas that you guys can use in addition to the forums. So you've got choices on how you can publish your ideas. Okay. So this spell is just about done. All we need to go back is put that condition on her so that it doesn't trigger at the start of her turn, but at the start of mine. And what was that called again? Mind control on turn start? Yeah. So we're going to need to do this as, once again, trigger subject, activator, right? Player ID is equal to, right? Trigger subject, and this one needs to be the unit that created the source unit. Event source unit property player ID. Okay, so now it should give them a turn to control that character. All right. I think this will make that spell fully work, and it will also make it so you can cure it, which is what we originally wanted anyway. Okay. Let us see if it works. Yeah, I am very excited about this spell. All right, so let's move her so we can see her. Tempt her! Okay, so she's tempted. Oh, look at that, he's using his new card. I love that the AI already knows how to use things. Ah, she didn't join me! You were supposed to join me! Okay, so that trigger was incorrect. Invalid trigger. Back to the drawing board. Mind control on turn start. Okay, so this condition was not correct. Trigger subject event activator player ID. We know it's player ID. It's just a matter of this guy here is not the correct thing. Ability source unit. Once again, I messed that up. So it should be ability source unit. The unit responsible for creating it. There. Save. Maps. Grassy path. Oh, I'm gonna so copy all those ideas you guys just put down. Okay, start game. Let's also make this test a little cleaner. I don't want the AI having any cards, and start over. Okay. Join me. You know you want to. I gave you that cool armor. You want to be on our team. We're the winning team. Now join me. Join me. Yes! She was tempted. Betray him! Yes! She was tempted and now she is ours. And that should now also read correctly. Controlled by night at the start of their next turn. Yes. Okay, so that is correct, and it is now controlled by night. Okay. Dark Temptation is ready to play, ready for the next build release. Thank you, Meltros, for pushing us on that one. Fantastic. So let's see. We I love my ambition once again. I had 8 cards here. We got 3 done. I've got just 14 minutes left, and I've got to go and pick up my daughter from school. So I don't want to try and attempt another one. But certainly we can use this time to discuss some of your ideas, to talk about the stream. Um, Really quick, I want to remind everybody to take a look at our stream calendar for this evening. We also have um, Elizagator doing her formerly Summoner Sunday stream has now been moved to Wednesday evenings to help drive some more people. I think there was another event going on Sunday, and we were hoping to get some more people. So we kind of thought it'd be kind of fun. You know, it's kind of like the work then play. As I said before, at some point in the future, once I've got the code more finalized and stable, I will be able to do these streams with you, push the updates directly to device during the stream, have you guys help in the playtesting of them, and additionally, you know, in the gameplay stream later this evening, then Liz will be able to use those updates as well. That's not the case yet because I'm still making code changes, but once it's a content-only change, we'll be able to push new cards and abilities directly to you during the stream and even play together, and it'll be kind of fun. So instead of having to use the AI to test, we could actually use each other to test, which would be kind of fun. So there are 3 new cards we implemented today: the Gate of Fate, Demonic Projection, and Dark Temptation. And we also got this card in a much more cool ability than was originally stated. So I will update these card images later today. All right, let's take a look at the channel. I've been neglecting the chat here and see what kind of messages we've got. It looks like we've got some new ideas for cards. I'm going to scroll up here as I missed quite a bit. Okay. So we're going to start at the top with questions. Does every summoner come with a tribe? That's an excellent question. Typically, the summoners, we like to create synergy with them so that there is some ties to other cards they can use. So ideally, they're linked to some group. But that's not necessarily the case. There's nothing that mandates that within our design philosophy, so they could be independent. We've even talked about the idea of a summoner being factionless, having ability to cast all of the different spell colors. Maybe that's his power without any other abilities, so you could kind of have a unique way to combine decks with that kind of character. I don't see much of the Divine Light tribe. Yeah, there's not. We have a magic type called the Celestial Magic. Speaking of the card types, by the way, I don't know if I've made this abundantly clear in the game, but there are 5 spell groups within the game. 6 actually. The 5 primary colors, though, all correspond to an aspect of the creation mythos within the world of the game. So rather than being tied to like nature or lands or other types of things that other games have used, we tie ours directly to elements of creation. And the way that the creationist story works in the game is that from nothingness, the universe is born of chaos, and it's kind of like a very almost like Eastern philosophy inspired design. I was a philosophy major in college, by the way. I don't know if I've ever said that before. And so I was very much interested in philosophical ideas. Creation ideas in particular were always fascinating to me. And so I've kind of taken the opportunity to reflect some of those philosophical ideas within the creation story of the game and with the cards as well. And so void represents the pure despair state of nothingness. Chaos is the natural energy potential within that inherent void. The arcane is the physical reality manifestation that comes. I think I skipped the celestial. Celestial is the divine consciousness that sort of comes born of that. The eventuality of consciousness that comes out of that. This is all very deep stuff. Probably not enough time to explain the 10 minutes we have left. But as far as the different factions go, yes, we'll certainly be developing other cards to represent those various aspects of creation. More divine celestial type spells will certainly be included. Maybe we'll add some of those to the docket for next week's stream. Let's see what other questions can I answer for you guys here. Um, okay. Is the player a unit? That is a great question. The player is not a unit as far as the game mechanics go. They are base class from the grid object. So grid object is the simplest structure that can be considered a action user. It can have actions attached to it. And at some point, I realized the player needed to have action capabilities. So it functions similar to a unit, but its coordinates are never placed upon the board. So that's the main thing. I think it does have coordinates, but they're always -1, -1. But they function similar to units. They don't have animations or attacks or anything like that, but they do have a state separate but similar to how the units work to control things like the mana display, the cards in their hand, and so forth. Okay, we had a question about let's see, have the ability to use. Okay. Does each summoner have the ability to use neutral and 2 other tribes for their decks? Yes. The current deck construction rules are whatever colors are flagged in the summoners, and currently each summoner that we have in the game right now has 2 colors, can use those colors plus the free will spells, which is the 6th spell group. Those are our neutral group. Okay, and let's see what other questions we have. Look at some ideas for cards. A 1/1 Dragon Whelp with Death Rattle. Shuffle a random dragon into your deck. Opaque Magic. Apply a status effect at the start of the character's next turn. That character's summoner takes damage equal to the number of actions currently on the stack. Both players are now confused. Yes, very much so. I love those kind of complex things, though. They're fun. Please do not make this card. Okay. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Make our channel in Discord. Okay. Crystallize 1 Arcana. I think it means mana. Deal 3 damage to a friendly unit. They gain 3 armor. Ooh, interesting. I kind of like that ability. Another one of those ones that's kind of like a, hurt to gain power. I always love those kind of fun ways of playing with abilities. When target unit dies, it becomes a skeleton under your control. So you can cast it on enemy units, and then when you kill them, get a skeleton unit. I like that. That is definitely a fun ability. Raise undead, maybe. Okay. Animate equipment. Remove all equipment from a unit. Create a 1/2 creature which is wearing all the equipment. Ooh, I love that. These are great ideas. Tempt someone with sexy armor, then the sexy armor runs away and joins my turn as well. Oh, jeez. Okay. Cryo Elemental, 3 mana, 4/3 end of turn. Freeze all enemy characters surrounding this. When a character gets frozen, this gets +1/+1. Oh, wow. That would be great in the Korra deck for sure. Excellent ideas, guys. I am so stoked. I'm going to make sure that I go back and copy all these into my notes. I should stress again that I take player feedback very seriously. I keep very diligent notes of every idea that is ever presented to me anywhere. It's not always the most organized, but it's never forgotten, never lost track of. And so at some point I will go back and review and find ways of incorporating it. And I usually try to remember the source of the idea too. So if I can credit somebody and say, hey, this was one of our streamer viewers' ideas, and I can shout out your name drop, I will certainly do those type of things. For those who are new to our community, there are several great examples of our community-driven development already. I mentioned last week's stream we had 2 card ideas that were driven by player suggested ideas, like the Acolytes Witness Me on Death Power. The Squirrel deck, which we have a whole, this is basically our elevator pitch we use now. When I'm at shows, I like to talk about the squirrels, like, hey, do you want to throw a squirrel at something? Because it always gets people's attention. But that whole idea started with a brainstorm we had with some of our original players from our first game, Hero Mages, and one of the players, Adam Walter, had suggested this idea of, like, I'd like a deck where I just summon a bunch of squirrels and then make them into bigger, meaner squirrels and overtake the enemy with mutant squirrels. I'm like, that's a fun idea. And so we kind of took that idea and then evolved it further through various iterations, and eventually came up with the idea of throwing the squirrels versus summoning them, and then mutating them into like humanoid squirrels. So these are all collaborations that we have leveraged our player community with to build ideas that are unique, desirable, something you want to see in the game, and it also lets you kind of take ownership of it. Like, we're really big on getting you guys involved so that you can see the game turn into the experience that you want to have. Something that's unique, something that makes you feel empowered and welcome within not just the game, but in the community as well. So yes, I really appreciate everyone taking time to come and watch our stream today, take part in the fun of building these abilities. It was so fun to tempt units, to summon our new units to the portals and so forth. And yeah, I look forward to doing these things regularly. If you take a look at our stream calendar, you'll notice that we've got these scheduled. In fact, maybe I can kind of show you some of our resources here. Develop with Ross. So this was the event, but this is our daily updates post, and it's either Kelly or myself that uses this tool here to. Oh wow, where are we at here? Yes, this is what I was trying to find. Is this the right thing? Is this the right page? Oh, we're on the wrong page. That's why. Here we go. Yeah, we post daily updates on our social media, but also on our forum. And one of the resources we have is that streamer calendar. Sign up for the event here. This is the stream calendar. So if you go to here, you can see we've got a whole month of events planned already. We've had MC and Mike in the past do some events. Elizagator, I mentioned, does our weekly gameplay streams. And you'll see that I've now scheduled weekly developer streams here. And I'll try to go ahead and put an agenda for cards in advance for each week as well, so you can kind of see an idea of what we're going to be trying to build that particular week. And you can also suggest your ideas to me. These events all have sign-ups to them. I don't think you can sign up for this one anymore, but you can sign up in advance to let us know you're coming, which is kind of fun. Oh, I have to fix that. There's a bug there. But yeah, so we have all kinds of cool events planned where you can participate with the group. And so take advantage of these. We've also got our Discord you can access on our website. And that's here on the main page. Join our Discord server. And if you don't see it there, you can come down here. Join our Discord. We've got the forums you can take part in and post messages there. So all kinds of ways to engage the community. And then, of course, all of our social media at the top. I mentioned that we are very close to releasing our public early access. The plan for the public early access is that we're going to launch it on our website first. I take Steam launches and Discord store launches very seriously. Those are kind of like a unique launch in their own right. And before I go to Steam or Discord or other public stores, we want to make sure we've got the game feature complete. And that means for us having the single player campaign mode completed. So what I intend to do is release our pre-release on our website first. That'll be by the end of this month, I'm hoping. You'll be able to play the game, play all of our tutorial campaign, play our AI matches, and play PvP with other players will be available in that build. And of course, that will also give you access to our mobile builds if you so desire to play on mobile, the PC build, as well as having all of your data, progress, etc. That stuff all carries over. So you'll have access to all the full game stuff as well when you get the pre-orders. So they'll be coming later this month. And I think that's all I have to talk about today. Once again, I appreciate everyone being on the stream. Always a fun time. Thank you, Meltros. And Imzacola, don't forget to add the channel on Discord for ideas. I will not. I will take care of that later this afternoon. Thank you so much for suggesting that. Thank you guys again so much for being on the stream. I'm so appreciative and grateful to have these opportunities with you. And I will see you again on the stream next week. Or anytime you so desire, feel free to reach out in the Discord or the forums. Thanks again, guys.